introduce myself. My name is Sal Cirrincione. I'm with the Premier Radio Networks out of New York. From there. So, let's get this going. What can you say? Grand Funk Railroad, standing room only last night for those of you who caught the show. And, of course, let's get the introductions going. In the middle, Mr. Don Brewer. To his left, Mel Shocker. And to his left, Max Carl. And to Don's right, we've got Bruce Kulick. And right here on my left, Mr. Tim Cashin. So I'll get the ball rolling here. One of the things that, Don, you were quoted many, many times saying is the Motown influence. You took your R&B stuff and just cranked it. So before I get into that, I'm just curious about some of the influences, or actually some of the music that was playing in your households as you guys were growing up. So Max, why don't we start with you there at the end? What were you listening to growing up? Where did you grow up, actually?
I was born in a little town called Platte Center, Nebraska, 442 people. Wow. Well, my dad was a world traveler, and he would come home. He went to Cuba a lot, and he would come home with records. So he'd play the accordion, my mom would play the piano, and my sister and I would dance around the living room listening to salsa music, and so we grew up listening to Cuban music. But he was a big band guy, and there were horns everywhere, so everybody has a family band. I have a family band now in Nebraska, and so I was playing saxophone and trumpet and anything I could pick up, so eventually soul music. Soul music was pop music, and all the British invasion bands wanted to play either blues or soul music, so that's what I grew up on.
Transistor under the pillow, going to sleep at night?
I actually had 5 different radios set up in my room, synced up so I could hear the music all around,
So you're the guy who invented 5.1 surround
I haven't
sound.
seen a dime in residuals.
And Mel, for you, what was in the family household growing up?
Well, my father was a musician. He played the guitar and banjo, and we always listened to big band stuff like Benny Goodman and Gene Krupa, the drummer, various kind of rockabilly stuff, when it first started out in the 50s. And I learned to play from my father, sitting on the edge of the bed, playing a banjo. When my hand was big enough to get on the banjo, and he put me on. I couldn't handle the guitars. The neck was just way too big, so he said, well, try this and just strum like this, and we made little counts like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that was my strum. Doom, doom, doom. So, but we listened to a lot of music. They had 78s, and they had all the big band stuff. And that's what I cut my teeth on. I actually, the first instrument I tried to play in a school band was clarinet, because I liked Benny Goodman so much. But that's about it, for me. I just love music, I couldn't get through a night without sitting on the edge of the bed and playing that banjo. It was just intriguing to me. So that was me.
All right, Don, you're up.
Again, I guess we're all from families of musicians. My dad was a former drummer, and he played during the Depression, and he was a school teacher. Both my parents were school teachers, and he was a school teacher, and he couldn't make any money during the Depression, so he would play in bands, and they, it was really for food and beer. That's what they would do. So. When I expressed interest in drums, he was like totally all over that. He'd take me down in the basement and we'd play on a kit. He'd get this little junky kit, show me how to play a kit. I was learning how to play drums in school, but that was more rudiments and marches and waltzes and all. And I hated all that stuff. All I wanted to do was
they kicked me out of bands and choir.
Yeah. All I wanted to do was play rock and roll. I saw Elvis Presley do Blue Suede Shoes, and that was it for me. I wanted to do rock and roll. So, growing up, that was my thing. I had to play rock, and my dad was very supportive. My mother and my sister were both into dance. my mother was a former ballerina. My sister went to and she was on Broadway, and but that was their whole thing. So it was always music and entertainment and that kind of thing in our household. And I think the other big thing for me, and I think as Max mentioned earlier, when Motown started happening and R&B and all that stuff, I was just that was my cup of tea for the R&B thing. And I think that runs the gamut through for everybody in this band, is that R&B is kind of a common denominator for us, and like Saul said, one of the things I always say is we took R&B and pumped it up and put it on steroids. That's what we wanted to do. That's it. So.
And I want to get to that in a little while, but I want to finish this thread. And Bruce, musical. Well, at least your brother, we know certainly.
Yes, I had an older brother, Bob, who many of you may know, and obviously we were both really affected by the Beatles when they appeared on Ed Sullivan. That was quite life-changing for many, many people, of course, and I knew I wanted to play guitar from that. Before that, Bob was actually into folk music even, because one of the cousins, a lot of musicians in my family, my mother supposedly sang, never took it seriously. My uncle was a violinist that I only found out like maybe 5 years ago was offered to tour in Europe, but the woman he was going to marry said, "You're not going anywhere," one of those, and I was quite impressed to find that out, that there was all this talent in the family. The guitar felt so natural to me right away. Obviously, having my brother before me kind of experiment, and he would go to England before I could think of doing that to try to to meet musicians, and he wound up meeting people like from Elton John's band and playing in a band called Hookfoot, some of their background, and he'd come back and show me, this is the way they play the G chord in England, and I mean, whoa, wow, look at that, So I was very fortunate to have him a little, be older than me to share his experience, and being in New York, I felt was such an amazing thing for me to network and be at concerts where I could see Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and all the bands came obviously to New York. My first concert was a Murray Kay show, okay, which was a radio guy, and it was the Rascals headlined, okay, but opening with two bands I didn't really know very well, but they changed my life, was The Who and Cream, okay. This is like 66 or something, and I knew I was seeing magic, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I was so drawn to the guitar. Everybody's talking about how they surrounded themselves with it. I cried the first time I heard "Are You Experienced" by Jimi Hendrix in stereo. Okay, it was a cheap Lafayette stereo, but it didn't matter. I mean, but the left and right imaging. You gotta remember, before that, it was one of those big consoles in your living room that your parents had, So I don't know. Classic rock meant so much to me, what we call classic rock now, but the British Invasion. I loved Motown. I loved all the the Four Tops and the Supremes and bands like that. The bass playing was always a monster. And I also fell in love with a band called Grand Funk. I loved what these guys were doing. To me, they were the American Cream. Okay, and it's been a dream for me to years later to be a part of their legacy. I love that.
See. If you knew Max, you could have listened to Are You Experienced in 5.1 transistor surround sound. And Tim, for you, what's your background?
What's the question again? No, I'm kidding.
Music in the household growing up.
I'm sorry, what's the question again? No, likewise, I came from a musical family. My dad recorded, when I came along, I was the baby of the family, so when I came along, he kind of puts the music thing aside and was working construction and electricity stuff, Duke Power type thing. But anyway, I just recently, when I was growing up, he had a 78 RPM that he recorded locally, and I kind of did the research, and I think it was probably in the mid to late 40s when he did that. He wrote a couple tunes, and anyway, played on like a little local radio station, and they decided to print a couple of these things. So. And I would have them as like frisbees when I was a kid, because they were literally metal, metal with vinyl on top or whatever. So like a test plate or something. So just last year, I had the opportunity with today's technology to record that song with a bunch of pennies and nickels on the stylus so that it wouldn't skip. But I had to do like 15 or 20 of them. And with today's technology, I was able to make a continuous song with no pops, like skipping beats and stuff. And then took this. So I heard it for the first time last year. It was quite amazing. So that was kind of neat.
It's on his Facebook.
And my mom played piano, so I was around music a lot. I'm the baby of 3, older sister and 2 older brothers. The closest brother in age, Pat, is 8 years older than me. So, and I'm 64 baby. So right around 69, 68, 69, 70, he's bringing in albums. He's a guitar player, Grand Funk. So obviously, I got a good listen to them as a little kid. So that was an early influence to me. So, and since then, just other bands, it was just the rock stuff. I eventually got a little into R&B and some jazzy type stuff as I started playing piano and things. But yeah, just from the family and being around it a lot.
All right, thank you. And so Don, give us an example of taking this R&B stuff and just cranking it. Some of the songs that we're going to hear, some of that R&B influence, Motown, what was going on in Detroit and Michigan at the time.
Well, I mean, we took Inside Looking Out. It was an old an Animals song, and I don't even think the Animals wrote that. I think that's an old blues thing that the Animals did, and then we took that and literally, completely transformed what that song was and made it a rock classic. I think, yeah, it's heavy. And it's I think that's a real good example of it. And of course, Locomotion, was our, we really needed a hit record. so we came up with Locomotion, and radio was changing. We were changing. We were being sued. We were, our career was like right about to go off the cliff, and we had to have a hit record. So. Mark Farner came in one day to rehearsal, and he was just, nonchalantly, everybody's doing a brand new, we all just jumped in on it, and just said, yeah, let's do the Locomotion, And Todd Rundgren, we had Todd in the studio with us, and Todd, put his magic on the thing. We were going for like a Beach Boys, Barbara Ann kind of party thing, out in the studio, and so. But again, it was cranked up on steroids. If you compare, the Little Eva version with our version, it's two totally different things. And then of course, Some Kind of Wonderful is a great, the Soul Brothers 6 were the original guys that did that. And when we were growing up, we used to listen to a R&B station in Flint called Wham, WAMM, and they were playing that song, and it just. We used to do it as practice, really. When we were going from the hotel to the venue, we'd be in the back of the car, and I don't need a whole lots of money. I don't need a big fine car, and we just do this a cappella version. So one day we went into the studio and cut it, and it's there it is. So. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. So. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Late 90s, you and Mel, Mark decides he's going to go do his own thing. You guys want to still play, keep the Grand Funk flag flying. But, you've got a mindset, a way you've done things, the way you've presented your music, the influences you've had. It's created this, brew that we know is the music of Grand Funk. How did you go about getting these 3 gentlemen, these 3 in particular, that actually, how many did you go through? What were you looking for? And, who was first, second, third, and finally we've got the new brew, as it were.
We weren't really, holding auditions, It was, Mel and I had decided that we wanted to continue, and Mark, definitely was, he was out of the picture. He wanted to go his own way. And just through, I was doing some clinics, actually, for PV Drums. PV Amplifier Company was making drums at that time, and I was doing these clinic, and the guy from PV Drums, what's the guy's name? Stephen Volp, yeah, from Michigan. He's the guy that came up with this design for the drums. He kept telling me about this guy Max Carl, and I said, well, I got to talk to Max Carl. He said, yeah, man, you got to hear this guy sing. And I checked out some of Max's stuff, and we, when we decided we wanted to go forward, we felt that if we had the right guys, we'll do it. If we can't find the right guys, we won't do it. And of course, having a singer that can do this R&B rock thing that is Grand Funk, that's an unusual, situation. And so I checked out some of Max's stuff, and I went, man, this guy's he's got to be the last blue-eyed soul singer on the planet, and he is, he's just incredible, and so I called Max, and it took me about probably 4 phone calls to get him to call me back,
That's misleading.
But I think at first he thought, yeah, this is a joke. It's Don Brewer from Grand Funk calling me, But finally, he called me back, and we talked, and I said, well, why don't you come up to Traverse City, and Mel and I, and we'll just jam and see what happens. So we flew him up to Traverse City, Michigan, and got into the I think we were in the casino. Yeah, we rented the casino up there to rehearse, and flew Max up, and we started doing this thing, and man, we were just going, wow, this really works, So it was like, okay, what are we going to do now? Let's really put, we got the singer, and Max can play keyboards and guitar and all, God knows what else, But we wanted to cover all the bases, make sure we could do all the recordings without having to, miss something, So we wanted to have a 5-piece band. So I racked my brain. I went, and I looked on the internet. I started, I was messing around with the internet back then, and I found Bruce Kulick, an old friend of mine I was playing with Bob Seger back in the 80s, and Bruce was playing with Michael Bolton in the 80s, and Michael Bolton was the opening act on the Bob Seger tour, and that's where I first met Bruce. And so I just called him out of the blue. I checked out to see what he was doing. He was kind of in between projects. So I called him, and I left a message for him, and he called me right back, and he said, "Sure, I'd be interested in doing it." Yeah.
I should jump in with that for a second. First, it was an email, and I went, "Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
Don Brewer, sure." You know what I mean? I was totally, and I was in New York getting ready to move my parents at the time to L.A. and that's a big move for seniors, But sure, and then sure enough, it was. We spoke, and it was funny. My first call was really this guy that used to manage KISS for a while that I was very close with. This guy Larry Mazer, great manager. And I said, I got this call from Don Brewer. What do you think? He said, like, it sounds great, Bruce. You should be really excited about it. I mean, I was, but I always test out a business guy to see what they thought. And then they flew me up to Michigan, and I was actually quite nervous because I didn't know what to expect, even though a lot of you may know of my 12 years with KISS. But to be honest, I played a lot of other styles too, between Michael Bolton and even I was in disco bands. Okay, you know what I mean? I was, to earn a living. I played with George McRae and Andrea True, and I loved R&B and that kind of music. So I was just very fortunate that I got this call, and here we are. This is our 17th year together. These 5 guys.
Yeah, and then and we wanted to make sure that we had all the vocals we needed, so we needed another singer, because Mel's not really a singer, and Bruce is not a real strong singer, so we wanted to make sure we had all the singers, and the keyboard parts and all that stuff. And so I called, being affiliated with the Bob Seger organization, I called Bill Blackwell there, and I said, can you recommend a keyboard guy? And he gave me Tim Cash's name, so I called Tim, who's down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we flew Tim up, and like I say, we did not spend a whole lot of time auditioning people to put this together. It's almost like the pieces just kind of fell into place, and it's like, let's go try this out. It's like this is really exciting. And then a radio station. My wife and I, Sonny, lived down in West Palm Beach, Florida, and a radio station down there called the Gator wanted to put together a kind of a test market thing, whatever. And they called me, and they wanted a band. They wanted a Grand Funk Railroad. They heard I was putting that back together, and so we went down and did that. And that was our test run, and it was like, wow, this is smoking, So as Bruce said, we've been doing this is 16. Is it 16 or 17?
This is our 7th?
17, yeah, 17 years, yeah. So there you go.
And but you and Tim never played with Seeger together, both different.
No, I was going to say Bill Blackwell was the guy that turned Don on to me, but I had actually toured with Bob Seger, in '96, and I think that was when you guys were kind of getting back together, right? In '96.
Yeah, we were putting the reunion thing back together in '96, '97, '98. And yeah, so.
And so the management team was kind of the same. So Grand Funk management was kind of somewhat associated with the Bob Seger. So that's how I had finished the Seger tour, and I think that's how Bill Blackwell was kind enough to pass my name along. So.
And no disrespect to Tim, but I know that when you play with Seeger, you've got Craig is in that band too. Was there a thought to calling Craig to come back to the fold?
Craig has been with the Bob Seger thing for years. He is really Bob Seger's keyboard guy. He's we respect that. So he's a full Silver Bullet member. So yeah, that's it. That's his thing. Yeah.
Even though he doesn't have the silver hair like you do. Well, it's worked 17 years. You've got the system down. How is it? So, how is it as a five-piece? Mel, why don't you jump in here? Obviously the power.
Five-piece is great. I mean, it fills that extra rhythm void that we may experience once in a while. Three-piece is fun to play. I mean, but you really have to be on your toes. Five-piece, you're knitted together. Everything has a function. And then the vocals with the five-piece is great. I mean, I could sing. I could sing the bass part. But I don't want to sing. I just like to play the bass. That's my thing, so.
Well, that was one of the questions I had sketched out here. I've never had the opportunity to speak with you, Mel, so this is quite an honor.
I don't do interviews.
Yes, I'm told. Actually, we were thinking it was just going to be 4 this morning, but you shocked us coming through the door. Your style, your style of bass playing, almost like a second lead guitar.
It is.
Very John, in the vein of a John Entwistle, Jack Bruce, Paul McCartney.
I follow melody lines, and I'll do a call and response. I'll be the response to a thing that happens. I'll respond off them and play a lick off them. And I just kind of developed that style, and it seemed to lead into every piece we did instead of playing offbeat, like R&B would be or whatever. It's more of a melody line. So
is that from?
It's kind of like Jack Bruce, but it really isn't Jack Bruce.
No. It's. But I'm just thinking of players that were just not just. Boom, 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 boom.
I played Motown. That was my big deal when I got in this band. I was playing Motown with a five-piece, just like a high school band. Because I was 17 when I met these fellas.
And did some of that come from your banjo playing? You mentioned.
Oh no, the banjo playing was ragtime. That kind of rhythm stuff. So.
And so then, Don, for you, what's it like playing with Mel with that style, and then when you go on tour with Seeger, you got Craig is just pretty in the pocket, as it were.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. I mean, and really, the 3-piece Grand Funk and then the 4-piece Grand Funk and then this 5-piece Grand Funk. Those are they're all different things too. That when Mel was explaining it, that when you're playing with a trio, you got to fill up a lot of empty spaces. So you're like playing with random abandon, trying to fill up all of this space, and then you introduce a fourth guy, whether it's a guitar or a keyboard, and it's like, wow, you don't have to fill the space anymore. You
the pad.
Yeah,
you got to have a pad under things.
And then you get a 5-piece, and you've got all the vocals. It kind of makes everything easier. It's a little more complicated, but it's a lot easier. You're not trying to fill up all these spaces with fills and this kind of stuff. So. And then playing with Seeger, the last time out with Seeger was a 15-piece band, and like that, it's like that's a whole different thing, and that is really a pocket kind of a deal. You're playing. I'm trying to cover all the bases that all these other drummers. There's probably been at least 15 or 16 other drummers that have played on Seeger stuff. So I'm doing what they do. But then I'm trying to put myself into it too, so I'm comfortable with it, and that's a whole different style. So if I do a Grand Funk show one night and a Bob Seger show the next night, it's like I have to really screw my head on a whole different direction, So, but
he does the job well, let me tell you.
But truly, it's a lot more fun playing Grand Funk. I gotta say, it really is.
just real quick, and we'll speaking of Bob Seger, you know, he won't go out now unless you're available.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So,
no, that is true.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
It is. That is what Punch and his office have
Well, I
told
know,
me
but
many
you know,
times.
that holds it. It doesn't hold water.
All right. Well, the last two things.
We're able to juggle dates to where it all works out somehow, really. So
Will you
everybody's happy in the end. So,
but I understand there may be double duty for you this year. Is that still in the cards? He has talked about going
I think
out.
that's off the table now.
Off the table.
Yeah.
Good old Bob.
I totally get why Seeger wants him so much, because I've seen him with Seeger a few times, but as a guitar player, I don't ever have to worry about a fill not landing in the right spot. The groove is always there, and I have many drummer friends that I'm very close with who absolutely think Don is the shit. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So, and I should add, it's true. And I can't tell you how many people, and I don't want to name drop, but I'll run into like Van Halen at the Admiral's Club at the airport, and Michael Anthony would be like, Mel Shocker, you work with Mel Shocker. You know, the fact that these people are influenced by these two gentlemen, all these players that I know, is remarkable. So, you know, these guys are great.
Regardless, you're not getting another bonus.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey. Sonny would go, right?
And you do crush it on Traveling Man, Beautiful Loser. That's the highlight of the show. Oh, always is. I had a friend last year. I said, hurry up, get back here from buying the beer. It's going to be Don's spot. Good stuff. All right, so talk about touring these days. You know, when you guys were Atlanta Pop Festival, Shea Stadium, you know, shows of that magnitude were in their infancy. I mean, sound systems were not that great. You know, we look back now and go, oh, it must have been amazing. Shea Stadium was probably better than the Beatles. I think they were able to hear you, where the Beatles you could not, because it was literally amplifiers just on the stage. But what's been the biggest change over all these years now in terms of touring? It seems as though it's a very comfortable thing. I know you got it down to a science.
Well, yeah, the technology is way better. I mean, when we were playing back then, we had kind of primitive amplifiers and primitive lighting, system, primitive sound systems. That's why we were always known as being the loudest band out there back then, because the only way you could fill some of these arenas back then was to just get the loudest system. It wasn't quality.
it was handmade gear.
It was
The
just
sound
having a
system,
lot of
the
gear.
amplifiers, it was all handmade.
And just turning it up as loud as you could get it, so you could fill the place. And now they can use these little, line array systems and stuff, and they're small systems, but they'll fill the whole room and sound great. But we just didn't have that back then. So the technology,
It was all experimental.
It's huge, where it's gone. And now and the way we travel now, we do. We have a backline company that brings our gear to us, So we live all over the country, so we just fly in, and we've got a limited crew. We just use the stage hands and stuff, and we fly in and fly out and do it, and it's a nice system. It keeps us from having to get on a bus and have a truck and all that, haul our gear and then you have to do this gig and that all over the place and do a tour like that. And we can just go out and play on the weekends and go home. That's what we do. Yeah.
Works. Hey, why not? Max, I want to. So the three of you guys, Max, Bruce, Tim, you joined, but this is obviously a band that's well established, well known. How do you go about putting your flavor, your stamp on what they're doing? What's the freedom you have to kind of weave yourself in and give us a little bit more Max Carl and not just replicating what Mark may have done or an older sound that the band had?
Well, I got sheet music and wrote out everything that Mark sang and studied those things. Never sang a song without those music pieces in front of me, so I had in my head exactly what he was doing. But it's my voice, and it's like you can duplicate the exact same guitar solo that Eric Clapton plays, but it's going to be your guitar and your guitar amp So I just tried to live up to the greatness of all those beautiful songs and to give that to them. And then I didn't think much about how my voice would sound differently from his. It was gonna, because it was a different instrument. But I just tried to be as dutiful to those pieces that I could be. Great songs.
Holds up. And Tim, for you, in filling out that sound, adding that background vocal, your approach?
Again, when I was with Seeger in '96, I hadn't been introduced to Don and Mel yet. And but funny story would be, I was on the B3 for that tour, and he also had, of course, Craig Frost keyboards. Silver Bullet, and many stories or times where if Bob's on stage, everything's kind of no cut up or whatever. You do things. But as soon as Bob would say, take 5 guys, I got to go. Sure enough, I'd look over, here comes Frost, running over to me. He's like, dude, check out what I did at Grand Funk. Because I had the B3 over here, and he was wanting to show me what he did because I told him that I was a big fan growing up or whatever. So just hanging out with Craig really that year, not even knowing where I'd be 5 years later or whatever, was a big part of my application to this band. Just being a bud with Craig, when I got in here, I kind of feel like, I'm obviously doing my own thing, and I don't think he sings, or whatever. So I'm bringing the vocals, the background vocals with these 2 guys is a blessing. It's unreal working with these guys vocally, and so really it's just that. It's just I'm kind of carrying Craig with me because we had a good time with Seeger. So yeah.
And Bruce, it's obvious your flavor is all over this. I've seen this lineup many times over the years, and you continue to amaze me and evolve year after year. And I thought last night again, even different again, some flavorings that I hadn't heard before, and I'm like, wow, that sounded great. That was right there, brought it to a new level.
Thank you, thanks. I remember when we were putting this together. I think it was the Bosnia live thing that they did at the end of their reunion that Don wanted me to really study, because I know that they were able with Neverson to really get the best kind of parts out of Mark. So that was a good roadmap, because I'm really glad I didn't have to learn like, let's say, bad bootlegs of the band live or something. And like Max was saying, I could be playing Mark's riffs like, the way Eric Clapton, you're not going to sound exactly like Eric Clapton. And the same thing with Mark. I have to admit that my goal, I always really respected Mark. Sometimes his tone on the guitar was he wanted to be not a British, tone in the Marshall amp and everything. And that is something I love. And these guys didn't mind that I still went a little more that way, the Marshall sound. Although I don't feel like I sound like I'm playing Kiss guitar when I'm playing Grand Funk, but I'm playing the guitar, really the classic rock riffs that Mark, I call them signature riffs. When a guitar player, these songs have classic riffs that are important to the actual song, how you guys have heard it. So it's my job, and I feel like I'm always able to interpret responsibly and get the emotion in it, so that I, put a fresh take on it, but you never lose the essence of what it's supposed to be. So you don't feel like, well, that's not the way it goes, So, but I love all this stuff, from Inside Looking Out, that's a real showcase for me, to just the intro of American Band, you know what I mean, which is iconic from that hit. So it's really great, and all the diverse songs that we do. I know Max didn't get a chance to mention that, we cover a song of his, from 38 Special, which really has his stamp on it. But here I am, playing solos that weren't anything a part of that song either. And then our intro song is something that we put together, Bottle Rocket that Don and Max wrote. There's a real diversity here that I'm able to still be respectful to the past, but at the same time be current.
And just to dovetail off of last night's show, I should have asked this right at the start.
Thank you.
What's it like playing on this ship? Is this the first cruise for you guys?
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever done a cruise, and it's an experience. It's an experience. We had some technical issues last night with, you don't get any sound check. You don't get any. We don't have our own gear. It's all gear that's put together. I got there yesterday afternoon, and there were 2 sets of drums on the stage. I was supposed to have 1 set, and I discovered that I'm not going to have either one of those sets. Marshall Tucker has 2 drummers, and they're going to have both of those sets, and so if I'm only going to have like a half an hour to change from what that guy had played to what I'm going to play. I said, well, that's not going to work. So I had to set up a whole other kit yesterday afternoon, and we got on stage last night, and Mel had all kinds of trouble with his bass amp, and it just, so you just, everything will be much better tonight. Yeah, hopefully. But that's an experience, and just being so close to all of the folks here, it is it's an experience, to walk down the hall and everybody knows who you are, and that's it's fun, it's fun. Yeah.
What about? No, I'm sorry. What about the motion of the sea? Anything? Did you notice anything on stage? It was pretty calm
I
last
felt
night.
it a little bit last night. I didn't feel it much because I'm always, I've got all my limbs going all the time. So I feel it more right now. It feels like
I'm feeling it now.
it's picked up quite a bit. Yeah. So are we heading into bad weather? That
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah.
Speaking of your limbs, you mean you're so energetic, you still got it. I'm not a musician, but it doesn't sound as if you missed a beat. You look like you're having fun up there. You play very hard.
That's why they call it an act.
You mean wrestling's not real? You're very aggressive. Do you practice at home?
If we're off for a while, if we're off for a month or 6 weeks or something, then I usually sit down and do get the chops back and get all the stuff going. But if we're playing every week, I really don't spend much time practicing. I really focus on trying to stay healthy. I exercise. I walk 4 miles a day. I'm at the gym every night. I'm always if I get some bursitis in my shoulder, I'm at the chiropractor getting work done on that. That kind of stuff. And I just try to keep that going. And I figure that if I keep going, I'll keep going. So that's what I focus on. And I've always been a high energy guy. I've always played in a high energy rock band, and I don't know any other way to play, really.
Do you take an ice bath after the show? I mean, are you sore? I mean,
I not really. Not bad. Nothing. A few beers doesn't help.
Bruce and Tim, you guys mentioned, in particular, growing up, being fans of these guys and stuff. So I'm curious, who do you hear the influence of Grand Funk in some of today's bands? Are there anybody out there that that?
Well, a lot of
harkens
them,
back?
love that kind of trio, because I do think of Grand Funk, even though we know the hits that had keyboards on it. There was something about the aggressive rhythm section, especially. Mel had that, as he mentioned before, melodic lead bass playing, which is, to me, the McCartneys, the Jack Bruces, and Gene Simmons loved that too. There's no doubt. One band that I don't even know if they realize, like Queen of the Stone Ages, would do some kind of very dark kind of things, and the bass is really, it's very, very much more Grand Funk than they would think. But the one band that really hasn't changed their sound that much through the years that I know were influenced by these guys that you guys may not realize is Van Halen. They've talked about Grand Funk. A lot of the big bands don't always mention the band that really turned them on when they were young. A few will say they like to go back to the beginning of time. It was Elvis Presley. You know what I'm saying? Which he was like the first one in rock and roll, just about. But the truth is, there's so many bands that like this kind of music that Grand Funk stands for, and some of them only know the hits. Yeah, Locomotion is one thing, but when you talk about Inside Looking Out and some of the other heavier songs that these guys did, and for me, that's why the guitar fits right in, especially the way I like to approach it.
And speaking of Queens of the Stone Age, Josh Homme from Queens of Stone Age, working with an old, I would imagine you cross paths with him, Iggy Pop. They've just done an album together. It's actually being announced today. They were on Colbert last night. Cool. Yeah, they were in the studio the other day in New York before I flew down here, so it's an interesting combination. So I want to get back to the drum soloing thing, but I want to get back to the song that the drum solo is always featured in. And if there's any children in the room, I apologize in advance. TNUC, which, if we go backwards, is a very derogatory comment, most likely used in anger. The solo is so aggressive in the song is so aggressive, so I'm wondering, was this song put together with that title due to a very angry situation involving a female?
I just think of it, I didn't write the song. We don't really we don't really do that song anymore.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't.
I think it was just kind of out of we got to call this something, and of course back then it was like, let's see, what do we call it? We can't say that, so we can spell it backwards. That they won't know what it is. So TNUC, and we'll put a little dot after each one of the things. No, they'll never guess. They'll never know what it is. Yeah.
I'm just curious.
That's it.
Thank you. Fair enough. Flint, Michigan, where you guys are from. Flint is in the news today because of the lead poisoning in the water, and there was one of the passengers on the cruise sent me an email. Her name is Jacqueline Orend. I believe that's how you say your last name if you're here. What can you tell us about your days at the Riviera Terrace Club in Flint? Are there any good stories behind this? I have to admit, I'm unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, wow. The Riviera Terrace was that was the band, the Jazz Masters, and Terry Knight and the Pack, and all of the bands that came before Grand Funk that I was in. Actually, played the Riviera Terrace, and it was just this little. It was a VFW hall. It was just like a place for the kids to come and do a sock hop and do teen hops and that kind of stuff. And the most memorable thing I can remember about that place was seeing a lot of really great bands there, including the Bossmen. That's Dick Wagner, who later went with Alice Cooper and all that stuff. He played there all the time. And also I saw the Kingsmen, who did Louie Louie, and that's Norm Sunholm brought these amplifiers with him, because he was making Sun amplifiers, and they couldn't make rock amplifiers sound like rock amplifiers, so he made his own, and they brought these amps, and I'll never forget seeing the first time that I saw the Kingsmen with those amps. They're like, wow, it was amazing, and that's really where we went off and got West amplifiers. We found this guy in Flint to make us amplifiers, because we wanted to kind of replicate that huge sound. And also saw Jerry Lee Lewis there at the Riviera Terrace, and it was a huge, influential kind of place, and I actually used to go there and do dancing, because we'd do these line dances there, and that's where I first, was going to the Riviera Terrace, and then it later became the place where all the bands were playing, Yeah.
Are there any plans to do anything for Flint in terms of a show?
There's nothing, right now. I've had a couple of phone calls, where people are kind of testing out the waters to put together some sort of a benefit, concert together. But there's nothing firm yet. Yeah.
And real quick, Flint the band. You guys actually did record a second album. Is that still stuck in the vault
Flint
somewhere?
the band. No, it was released. We found out later that it was released in Europe, and I've had a couple of European people, that had brought copies over, so I actually was able to get one for my collection for that. Yeah, but that was it.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, that was a band that Don Mel had with Craig. So good.
Yeah.
I've got the first album, so I didn't realize the second one did make it out there.
It came and went like about that quick.
Well, sadly, in today's world, that is indeed the case. So. Folks, get some questions ready. I'm going to come out there and ask a few here in a second. I just want to see what else we can touch upon. This was something that I found to be very interesting, and I wanted to see if this was true because he's also on the cruise. Did you guys really want to hire Peter Frampton?
Yeah, we actually approached Peter in the 1972 or something like that. We did a tour in Europe with Humble Pie opening up for us, and we became friends with Peter at that time. And then when we were leaving our manager Terry Knight, and we were debating going to a 4-piece band and expanding and kind of coming up with a hit format kind of a thing, I called Peter. I remember I called Peter on the phone to ask him if he'd be interested in joining Grand Funk, and he had just finished his first solo album, and we all know where that went. That just became huge, and he respectfully declined and said, I'm heading in this direction, and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Well, he's in cabin. Maybe see if he'll come jam with you guys one night on stage.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. Did I just scribble out a question that I was going to ask next? I apologize. Well, I know what it was. That decision to go to a 4-piece, that decision that you needed a hit, what brought all that on?
Fear of failure. We were we were a huge, in 1969, 1970, 71, we had 6 gold records, and FM radio was like all over us, we were touring the world, and then all of a sudden we found out that our manager and our 2 attorneys were ripping us off for everything. We had nothing, and at the same time, we were faced with FM radio going away as being an underground thing. There are no more 7-minute songs. All the consultants had come in and they said you got to have 3-minute songs. Everything's got to be a commercial thing because we're selling commercials. We're not just appealing to the pot smokers out there. We're trying to be a hit radio thing. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, we're broke, and radio is not going to play the old style music we were playing at that time. I hate to call it old, but they weren't going to play that kind of thing anymore. So we needed to kind of change and become a hit band, and that was our whole motivation for that was, come up with hit songs, come up with a hit record producer, Todd Rundgren, expand the band, make it sound, more of a pop kind of a flavor, and that was our whole approach, and by golly, it worked. It kind of ticked off a lot of our original fans, but we had to do what we had to do at that time, and that's what we did.
So when you wrote "We're an American Band," did you specifically try to write a hit?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking, okay, this is going to be a hit. We were flying around with all of this crap going on, being sued, and every town we were playing it was being sued. They were trying to shut the thing down. So we're flying around, and we're flying into town, and the thought came to my mind: we're coming to your town, we'll help you party it down. And that line kept sticking in my head, and I'm not a great guitar player, but I know a few little 2-finger chords on a guitar. So I picked up a guitar and started, doing this, little down, down, bam, da, down, 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 da, da. So I came up with all the chord changes, and I, started to come up with the lyrics. So we were introduced to Sweet Sweet Connie. So I introduced the whole thing about Sweet Sweet Connie at Little Rock, and the 4 groupies in Omaha, and I put all these things into the song that was going on the tour. Playing up all night, playing cards with Freddie King. I got to tell you this story. Freddie King was one of the great blues players, and he was our opening act on the tour before the American Band thing, and he would play poker with his band every night. He would make them play poker. You have to play poker if you're going to be in his band. And so he'd pay him, and then he'd play poker and win the money back. And that's just true story. And so up all night with Freddie King, I got to tell you, poker's his thing. So that line made it into the song. So I put all these lines together and put this song together, and I couldn't come up with a final tag for the song until one day it dawned on me: we're an American band. I just sang so well, and I put it all. And yeah, I wanted to make a commercial song. Yes, definitely. So that was the approach to it, and I used all of the things I had going at the time to do it, and I just think. I think it was sent to me, really. I think it was the time being. It was like, we got to beat Terry Knight. Terry Knight was our former manager that screwed us and ripped us off, and so somehow we got to beat him. And I think that was our gift. Yeah.
Bruce, you went for the mic when Don was saying that the new sound might have pissed off some of the fans of the old sound, and I know you're...
No. It is really remarkable. I do find the history of the band to be incredible how they were really taken advantage of by bad people. Who I think were. You thought they were your friends, I guess, at one time, right?
We were the brothers. We were. Yeah, it was. That was the time of brothers.
And that's this classic thing. And then, of course, everyone smells money in the industry, so that whole idea of a 7-minute song goes down the drain, and all of a sudden they got to hit, create short songs. But I'm just so grateful that all, you didn't let it beat you, you beat them, and that's lightning in a bottle, that American band, right? And Locomotion, I mean, it's all there. That's a great record, and I love the fact that that album was the start of, right, nothing to do with the old regime, right? Yeah. So they were able to carry on and be successful.
What a blessing.
And they shed their clothes in the gatefold. Anyway. Who's got some questions? Anybody have questions? We got some time for a few here. Yeah, I do my little Phil Donahue impression here, run around. So, hi there.
Hey, so you guys said that you were playing in Seeger and did all that. Mark Chatfield came out of a band in Ohio called the Gods. You guys want to input on that a little bit and how it was playing with Mark?
Well, I got Chatfield that job in the Seeger's band. Yeah, I produced the first, and I was going to produce the second Gods album, but I walked out on that one. But the first, I produced the first Gods album. GODZ, the Gods are rock and roll machines, right? Yeah. You're taking Quaaludes and cheap booze, always falling down, baby. Please excuse me, baby, I'm stoned, but all I can say is, baby, go away. Yeah. I'll never forget it. Yeah.
Hey guys, first of all, congratulations. Great show last night. I didn't know you had problems, but you sounded great. I came all the way from Panama to see you. Hopefully you can play in Panama one time. Yeah. My question, the new song last night sounded great, and I see you have some great musicians in the band that are also very good songwriters. Any probability of new music being recorded?
We've got, for the past 17 years, we've had a lot of different songs that have come and gone. We've always, tried them out. We try songs out in the show, we do. And, I would like to, at some point, put out a live presentation that includes live versions of the songs we've done together, as well as, the Grand Funk stuff that we're doing now. So I think that would be a good way to go about it, But we don't have any immediate plans to do it, but yeah.
Speaking of recordings and stuff, you guys got anything left in the vaults? I know this comes up every few years, and sometimes it's no, and then all of a sudden something's discovered. Have you heard of anything that's...
Yeah, I think that we've pretty much covered it all. I mean, it's I've done all the digging in the places I have, and Mel's dug through all of his stuff, and I think it's all out there that's ever going to be out there. We do have a great film that was Shea Stadium, Grand Funk at Shea Stadium, done by the Maisley Brothers,
yeah.
Right? And that's never gone out there. It's never been put out there. There's been issues about who owns what and all that kind of stuff. So it's never. But that's about the only last piece that's never been released. Yeah.
And when you guys did that box set in the late '90s, there were 3 new songs on there.
Right.
Was that the start of a new album? Were there any other songs, or that was just 3?
That was just intended to be for that package, just some new material for that package. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else questions? Right here, sir.
On your live album from the '74 or '5, you ended the concert with "Gimme Shelter." Do you guys run that or play that ever anymore? Or
yeah, we haven't
Black
done that.
Licorice, things like that.
Haven't done that in years, and it's becoming a relevant song again, isn't it? It wasn't for a long time, and that might be something to do. Right? So yeah.
If you're on the deck stage, it's so
go.
windy, if you make a mistake, nobody will realize. Here you go, sir.
Listen, I'm going to show my age here. I saw you guys back in '69. You were the first concert I ever saw at Madison Square Garden. And you came on before the headliners were Sly and the Family Stone. And you guys were on before them. Do you remember the act before you guys came on?
No, I don't. Do you?
Yes, I do.
Who was it?
Richard Pryor.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Richard Pryor. Like
wow.
I said, I'm showing my age.
I do not remember that one. I remember seeing Sly and the Family Stone that night, though, and that was awesome. You know.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I passed out in the bathroom.
Yes, ma'am.
No big deal.
I've got you next, ma'am. Here we go.
Hello, Patrick. I used to be an alcoholic and addict, but I'm doing good today. And I was gonna say, first time I saw you, I guess I was about 11 years old. Back on the reservation, there was an Indian village there. Y'all pulled up one time. I remember that long time. I could still remember that. Y'all pulled up in a limousine, and Cadillac or something. That's the first time I saw you. I was about 11 years old back then, and I still remember y'all. And I like your music. I like the foot stomping music. That's good, and I love it. And I grew up with y'all, and I met you before, and y'all came to the Hard Rock sometime, and that's good.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Seminole tribe. I'm a Seminole tribe. I'm a Seminole.
Yeah.
My name,
Hollywood, Florida. Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
Hollywood, Florida. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe you remember Pirates World?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
They used to. The kids wanted to get into the concert free, and so they tipped over the police car and threw Molotov cocktails at the police cars and tried to run into the gates, so to get into the concert. They got in for free,
Thank you for letting me.
It's like 5 minutes from Pirates World.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Right in the Hollywood reservation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Young lady back here, young lady there, and then you, sir. Okay, right here in the back in the middle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My mother used to say, if you could remember these words to every one of these songs, just put it to your schoolwork, and then you'd know everything, because I knew every single word to every song that you did. But do you remember playing the Ritz Theater in Staten Island?
Yeah,
I remember where I've seen you guys. I wonder if you remember where you were.
Yeah.
It
No, I
was
was
a
still
theater.
passed
It
out
was
in
a
the bathroom.
tiny theater, and it was the loudest band I ever heard in my life.
Yeah. I don't remember the Ritz Theater. I remember the Fillmore and
No, this was this crazy movie theater in Staten Island.
The Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey.
It was
We used to play
wild,
out
but
there all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can make the rounds here. This young lady in front.
Hi. Uh-oh, here she comes. Do you remember me, Mel?
Uh-oh.
I met you from Terry Night in the Pack in West Palm Beach Rock Festival. And I
remember West Palm.
Stayed with you for a week.
Did we do it?
Oh, you were my first. Makes me hot. I am now an entertainer in Alaska, and I'm Dawson Dolly with the biggest
You're not
nuggets.
going to jump on me, are you?
No.
Okay.
I'm married. I'm Dawson Dolly with the biggest nuggets in the Klondike, and my husband's a gold miner, and I'm a gold digger. But when we met, this was what I looked like. I'm twice the person I used to be. But this,
I'm sorry, I got to put my glasses on.
but I don't know if I was your first. I don't know. Oh, thanks. But can we chat later?
No.
And what do you say?
Okay.
You were a fox. You were a fox. Now you're a cougar, yeah.
Oh, thank you. And Don, I met you too. And it's an honor to see you guys after 40
I remember.
It's a beautiful thing.
47.
Yeah, we're
We
done.
got to hug later, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Don't worry, my
You're
wife.
not
is on
going to
board.
tell
My
me you were
wife's on
Don's
board.
first, were you?
Oh. You guys were my first. No, you guys were my first concert I ever went to in my life. Atlanta Fulton County Stadium.
'69.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people say that. A lot of people say Grand Funk was the first show that we ever went to, and it always kind of amazed me that what was it about the parents that said, "Oh yeah, you can go see Grand Funk." I don't know. Because look at what Mel, look at.
You were kind of dangerous. I must admit.
They didn't know. I went with a friend.
I guess we had them fooled, Yeah.
Hey, but I got a poster, and I hung it on the wall. I was 15, and I hung it on the wall till I married this woman right here, and we've been married 39 years. But I love the Mean Mistreater.
Oh yeah.
Incredible.
That's a great song.
I'll never forget it as long as I live.
We did that for about almost 10 years, I think. Yeah. It's a great song. That's another good one to bring back. Thank you. A great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. You guys would have been my first concert, but Shea Stadium sold out so fast. I still remember the full-page ad in the New York Times. I was 9 years old. I had the benefit of older cousins, and that's how I was exposed to you at an early age. And I remember that ad, but it sold out so fast my uncle couldn't get the tickets, so George Harrison ended up being the first concert, but it would have been good to see Grand Funk.
Do you remember what the concert tickets were for Shea Stadium? You remember how much they were?
I don't recall that, but I'm going to go like $5.50 each or $9.50.
Yeah, I think they were $5 or $6.
Yeah. So, and this gentleman in the front, and then we're going to start to wrap this up.
I grew up in New Orleans, and I just wondered if y'all ever played The Warehouse in New Orleans.
Oh, absolutely, but not
a tough venue.
Not as Grand Funk, I don't think. I think we played there. Oh no, we did. We played a couple of times, I think, as Grand Funk, and we played there as Flint too. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a great place. That was wild. That was a party place. Yeah.
All right, and as we start to wrap this up, I just want a couple of little individual things. Any of you guys do music outside of Grand Funk? Bruce, I know you do, but Tim, Max, you guys got any projects going on that you want to talk about?
No.
Max is always doing music. He's always got a little project going. Don't let him fool you.
And
Tim Cashin, the same thing.
Tim's got stuff going on. He works with singers around the Charlotte area. I'll let him talk about it. But he also he and his brother have done some stuff. I don't know if people know what beach music is. It's a North Carolina, South Carolina coastal kind of a thing. Yeah, and they do a lot of line dances in all the clubs and stuff, and they're just doing R&B music is what they're doing. It has a swing to it, and so he and his brother do a beach music CD almost every year and go down there and do that, and he always sends me a copy of it. I love hearing that stuff. It's great.
You still doing the line dancing? You said you did it at the Riviera Terrace.
I did it on New Year's Eve. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And Bruce, you got any projects coming up this year? I know you're.
Just when I can, when the schedule permits, I get offers because of the KISS years, It's funny, they do ask for Grand Funk in a lot of these countries, and all I could say is, I don't know, but I'd love to come, But, what's really amazing about those years with KISS is that, especially internationally, the fans are just so supportive, and they really don't forget you, so they always are looking for an event or for me to be able to do some gigs or clinics, and again, when the schedule permits, I try to do that. Last year I went to Australia, and I was able to go to Europe for a short, long weekend, and then I did something in Mexico for a weekend too. And those trips, that's long enough for me. That's fine, I may be going to Brazil in a month or so for the open weekends that we have, but I enjoy that, even though it's a little crazy. But like what Don earlier said, when he does Seeger, he has to wear like a different hat for that and mentally think different. And all of a sudden, my gears change completely for that music. But the guitar means so much to me in the same way, drums are natural for him, and I just love to play my instrument. It's great. You guys, there's times at home when I'm playing, and it doesn't feel the same when I just want to pick up a guitar in my living room, because that's very easy to do. It's harder to start blasting on your drums in your living room or something, but it's funny how I just don't have the same kind of drive or inspiration, and then there I am on stage, in front of a crowd like we had last night at that theater, and it's just like I'm going, how are my fingers moving like this? This is amazing. This is so much fun between these guys on stage and the reaction from the crowd and having you guys cheer us on it's what makes a dream for a musician. It truly is.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap this up. On behalf of everybody, thank you all for coming down. Mel, appreciate it.
Hey, I'm good. I'm all right.
And I got them photos in the book, so we know if we don't see you on stage tonight. And lastly, on behalf of everybody here, we all certainly feel that Grand Funk should be immortalized in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame someday. So, Don, Mel, Max, Bruce, Tim, thank you guys very, very much. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for coming.